the hour. Beside him, we have the president of the Amateur Athletic Federation, Ms. Mona Rogers. And beside her, we have Ms. Helen Delaney, who is the World Athletics International Relations and Governance Officer. We have here with me Mr. Rollins Richardson. What's your official title?
General Assistant, everything.
So, exactly. So this afternoon, this session is for the athletes and the coaches and the parents to have an open conversation directly with Seb and Helen, the president, and Rollins. I'm going to have to dash off in a second, I'm sorry. So you'll have the chance to ask them any questions you want and have a frank conversation. Within reason, of course, this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over. I see a lot of coaches in this room, and I heard that there's a group of athletes who have not yet arrived. So
be cozy.
We're going to be cozy here this afternoon, but I'm going to turn over to the president of the Athletic Association to open up this evening's meet and greet, and then I'll turn over to Seth.
Well, all I can say is thank you so much for coming out. I'm pleased to see the numbers, although I understand that there are more to come. It is not too often that we will be honored by having the president of World Athletics visit us. As a matter of fact, I think this is the very first time. We have had NACAD presidents visit us, but this is the first for a World Athletics president, and I think that it was important that we were able to get him to come at this time, because I know this is his very last term in office as president of World Athletics. So I would like you to give both him and Helen a round of applause for. Thank you. It really says something when he can take time out of his schedule to come and visit us here in Angola, and he has done so primarily, or they have done so primarily, to support us in all that we're doing here, and to see how we manage really in Angola, given the resources and the facilities that we have. So I'm pleased about that. Well, let me acknowledge the presence of, I didn't see the various ministers and people behind me. I'd like to acknowledge their presence. And obviously, it speaks to the type of person our president is, that he has garnered this kind of attention in Angola. So, and as an Olympian, again, world champion, it says a lot about his achievements. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of some of our executive members. I see Perry Richardson there, who's one of our vice presidents, and Pam, who is an ex-officio member. I imagine that Alexis will be here in a while. Even though she's no longer an officer, I would still like to acknowledge Heather for the work she continues to do for athletics, and Winston also as a past General Secretary of the association. Well, I have Seth has been introduced, and Helen has been introduced. Obviously, I can basically say that these are probably the two most important functions. They fill the two most important roles in world athletics. So to have them here with us again speaks a lot. So without going on anymore, I just like to welcome them, and I think unless I will turn over to Seb at this point in time.
I don't think I'll need
No.
Oh, is it for recordings? I'm going to stand for a few moments, if you don't mind, because I'd like to, first of all, thank you all for being here. I know that some of you have just finished training sessions, which is, okay, Does this make a big difference? Okay, I know it's the recording. Okay, calm. Okay, I get it. But I'd like to start with a thank you, a congratulations, but also with the congratulations, a warning. A thank you to the chosen profession on this planet, which is coaching. Nothing happens in our sport unless we've got coaches that are prepared to give up hundreds of hours of their year, most often fitting it in with other pressures, family life, their own professions, because most coaches are not professional. Very few are professional. And so thank you. I'm going to thank the coaches first. Athletes, I hope you don't mind me focusing on the coaches, because coaching is not just about technical knowledge, it's also about helping you to become adults and better people and focused on all sorts of things that athletics will help you with. Congratulations to you, athletes, because you have chosen athletics. You've chosen track and field. I'm sure that many of you are playing other sports at the same time, but athletics is the sport that we're here to focus on today. And the most important thing to remember is that even if you don't end up in track and field, and I sincerely hope that you do, it doesn't really matter what sport you pick up, you have to be a great athlete. You have to be a great track and field athlete in order to play all the other sports. So if it's soccer, you need to be able to run, long, fast, hand-eye coordination, you need to be able to sprint, you need to be strong, you need to, it's rugby, cricket, they're all sports that rely heavily on the things that you do. And congratulations comes with a warning, because I'm biased. You have chosen the toughest sport. And if it was easy, it would be football. It's not. It's not. It's track and field. And it requires discipline, it requires focus, it requires more skill sets than almost any other sport. But the warning that comes with that is it is also statistically the toughest sport to reach the top in. It's not swimming, it's not gymnastics, it's not rowing, all great sports, but they're not global sports. You've chosen one of the two only global sports. You've chosen athletics, you've chosen track and field, and the other sport, of course, is soccer. And if it was easy, it would be soccer. It's not, it's track and field. So thank you for doing that, but just recognize, for instance, when your role model, your hero, Zarnell, wins a bronze medal in a World Championships and is heading to an Olympic Games in Paris in a few months' time, and he does what he does, it's tougher for him to do that than it is for a swimmer, a gymnast, a rower, a cyclist, because it is a truly global sport. So you've undertaken one of the toughest sports. I would be biased, of course, and I would add to that that if any of you are thinking about 800 meters, that's the toughest event. Because that requires more disciplines and skills of almost any distance. And it's complicated. We'll perhaps get into that later. So it's really a thank you, coaches, and also, if I may, join that with parents too, because the most important element in that, and any coach will tell you, is, it's having parents and families and networks and friends that support what you do. So coaches, number one, parents sitting alongside them, you, congratulations for choosing the sport that you've done and you're choosing to do. But it comes with the warning, as I said, it's a tough sport. And nothing happens overnight. Nothing happens overnight. So I know roughly the ages that you are. And you have to be patient. Any coach will tell you, you have to be patient, you have to let it develop carefully and slowly. And if you go at it too fast and without the right sequence of programs and training, then it's not going to work out. So all that comes together, and thank you for being here. And I'm really happy to answer any questions that you might have. But again, congratulations, and to the coaches, thank you for doing what you do.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone, and good afternoon to you, Mr. Coe, from the here. I know you for a long time. As an 800-meter runner, this is the first time I had an opportunity with you. My name is Trevor Rasbucket Davis. I started my athletics career in 1975. I was the first time for a sprinter to run the 100 meters and the 40 meters in the Capital Games 1980. I was the first Angolan sprinter to run the 100 meters in Angola at the first World Athletics Championships in the St. Kilda 1983 by May 20th. Ben Johnson, Carlos Christie. In 1985, I placed second for Ben Johnson in 19. I got 9 World Championships, 3 indoors and 6 outdoors. I had a stint in the UK. I ran for women's stories in the
Yep, good
my
club.
first competition was against Jason Livingstone.
Okay.
And the 9th on the 7th of May 1990, and defeating the 100 meters in Croydon. I was the first Angolan to set a national record of 10.64. And of course, Birmingham, in the senior 1990, I set the Angolan national record of 31.24 seconds.
Congratulations.
And thank you for being here in Angola with us. That's to show how serious athletics are. And as you are the president of World Athletics, we are very happy to have you here with us, all the youngsters here. So they could look up to you and know that you look at athlete, that's how serious it is. And my wish is that we continue with athletics. As you say, it's the #1 sport, it's the mother of all sports. And I must thank the scientist, Mr. Ken Banks and all them, who has helped me over the years, because it made me a different person. And as I know, I am a PE teacher in the schools. And everyone there had something to do with sports.
Thank you.
We just want to build on strength. A foundation already has been laid, and we just have to build on it. And we are on the board of getting an aggregate strength. So I just want to say thank you for coming here. And thank you, Minister of the Government, for being here to support us as we got the land, and that is very important. Without the land, we could not move in it. So thank you for seeing the importance of sports too. As sports promote your country, so we want to thank you all for supporting us. And may God bless you all and everyone here. Sport is over. Keep you out of trouble, because I'm 60 years now and it kept me out of trouble. And you know, I give God thanks and praise to my life to carry on and whatever to do to help our youngsters, we do it. Thank you.
Thank you for doing what you do.
Athletics is the way to go. Thank you. Blessings. Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Coe. It's a pleasure meeting your acquaintance once again. My quick question to you, in light of the reduction of the possibility of coaching courses, do you know if World Athletics would endeavor to ensure that smaller islands such as Anguilla and BBI and some others could get access to not only the level 1 courses, but some of the higher courses, so that our coaches, as you said, without your coach you can't get far, so that our coaches could be better equipped, so that we can push our athletes further?
Look, thank you, great question. Let me reassure you that we spend, and I'm actually going to ask Helen to respond in a moment, because this really is her her area of expertise. But let me reassure you, and I hope from what you heard me say in my opening remarks, which is an absolute commitment and a salute to the work of coaches. I know that we don't have a sport unless we've got coaches that are well-resourced and are capable of taking youngsters from the playground to the podium. And we've changed our approach to that a lot recently. When I became president of the sport, it was pretty clear to me that we weren't using any of the technologies that were even available to it. I mean, we've all got familiar with Zoom and Teams, and I mean, some of us couldn't even pronounce those words before COVID. And even during COVID, I was on regular online programs and courses that had maybe 1,800 people on, and they were all about using that technology to access and get to many, many more people, including coaches, technical officials, encouraging more people into our sport. And some of the most impactful programs have been around our gender leadership programs. So level 1 coaching is now online. It's accessible to everybody, and it's the way it should be. And you know, the old days of assuming that you can put 2 or 3 well-qualified coaches into a community, they do something in the field for 2 or 3 days, everybody gets a certificate, and somehow we rather assume that everybody's able to continue in that vein. I'm not sure it worked properly then, and it certainly doesn't work now. So being able to tap into those programs, those courses, and having them actually translated into different languages as well, because the whole world doesn't all, you know, we don't all speak English, and it's important. And you know, I'm going to see a kids athletics program tomorrow. That's a very good example of how we've actually changed our whole approach to that as well. So yes, they are available. We will make sure that if you're not sure how you can access that, we can take that offline. That's the easiest thing in the world. But coaching for us is hugely important and a really big priority within our world plan, which really is the signpost of the sport between now and 2030. So everything you've talked about is close to my heart, and be reassured, we have those programs in place. And if you're unsure about how to access that, then that's something we can remedy here right away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Helen, sorry, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, level 2 is also, sorry. Level 2 is also now online in English. And the other recognising that, so it's not, obviously there's only so much you can learn online, or whatever the theory is needs to get, I guess, tested in the field, and that's where the federation kind of comes in. But we also recognise there's an opportunity, once you've got the qualifications, it's really important to keep the coaches engaged. So actually providing additional, I guess, continuous professional development opportunities through webinars and other leadership courses is something that's being added to supplement the level 1, level 2, and obviously on to level 3 qualifications. So there's a lot we can talk about offline for sure. It's important.
Thank you, Helen. I knew you'd be able to answer that.
Seeing that there's so many voices clamoring out, focal point of another question. In light of our state of athletic development, and this maybe goes beyond your present ambit, seeing that you're the president of World Athletics, is there a possibility of some assistance from British Athletics in terms of getting not only our coaches, but probably getting our athletes some additional exposure?
You're asking the good questions. Actually, in advance of this visit here, I spoke to UK Athletics, and I recognise Anguilla has a very special and almost unique relationship with the United Kingdom. I have had these conversations in the past, with British athletics, UK athletics. They haven't always landed on the most fertile land, but in advance of this visit I did actually speak to UK athletics, and they're really happy to explore, and I was taking this offline with Lorna over lunch, they're very happy to explore transfer of knowledge programs, maybe even some coaching exchanges. So yes, they recognise that. UK athletics has been through its own financial difficulties recently, so as president of World Athletics I have no responsibility in UK athletics any longer, so I can't commit them to anything, but I think they are very happy to have this dialogue, and that's actually the first time that I've managed to get them, you know, to the trough, if you like, to at least explore some opportunities. I did also raise it with the governor this morning on the island, and she's aware of the need for that conversation to take place.
Could we find a way, saying that Isabel Hughes and Sharon have to represent the UK and how it treats our athletes as they go to the UK. So could we work out a situation where we have athletes here, we have carried games coming up, where our athletes, the coaches in the UK, club level work with our coaches here, and we get agreement where our athletes get ready to carry the games. Suddenly, eventually, our athletes will then go to the UK, take part in some upgrade, eventually the training, and they've got how long.
I think that is the scope of the conversations that can take place.
Right, so
and that is, I know that the chair of UK Athletics, Ian Beattie, and the chief executive, Jack Buckner, are really happy to have those conversations. And I think that's probably most appropriately from Federation President to Federation President. But I will obviously... Yeah, no, we can. I'm sure that that's within the scope of the conversation.
When I was in the UK, and I compete my competition,
Yeah.
I want them always and say, that's a good for Angela, so that's a good avenue way to go.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to say that from a local association standpoint, we have not had those conversations with the athletics, but I know the minister has had those conversations with UK athletics, so it's in train.
Any of the athletes want to ask a question? Well, that's frightened you all, isn't it?
Good afternoon, President Cole.
Good afternoon.
My name is Rosanna Brown.
Seb is fine, by the way. You don't need all the other stuff.
My name is Rosanna
We have a premier in the room. I don't want people to get confused.
Seb,
Thank you.
welcome to Angola. My name is Rosanna Brown. I'm a former national athlete and all Angolan sprinter. I'm not bucket. I'm not as old as him, and I can't repeat all his track record as I have.
That's a relief to us all.
So I'm not going to go down that road, but I would like, just to share a little joke. When I came in the room, I saw this couple over here, and I said, but that doesn't look like Seb. I know.
He's far too young.
That's not the Seb I know, because I remember when you were at the pinnacle of your career as an athlete, an 800 sprinter, and when you came out the door there, I said, okay, now that's it. I recognize you then. But I just wanted, for clarity, let us know specifically what is the purpose of your mission here. We hear of a track, we hear of land identified, and all of that. And now you're here. And we heard of World Athletics working to get us a track. So can you shed some light on that and clarify what is the purpose of your mission here, and what is your expectation of this visit, and what should we expect
Right, well, I'm not going to be too fazed by you confusing me with somebody else, but I don't want to be confused for being here as an American property developer. I'm not. You raise a very good question. What is the mission? Well, the mission was very clear. When I spoke to Lorna many, many years ago, we talked in the infancy of our conversations about the challenges that the small islands, small communities, limited funds, modest resources has in delivering the sport that we want. And when I became president of the sport, I recognized a number of characteristics. We have one huge asset. We are one of the only 2 global sports. There are well over 200 countries that do what you're all doing here. And that's fantastic. But with that comes a challenge. And that challenge is pretty obvious. It's that one size does not fit all. You know, even within the proximity of a few miles around here, you know, the challenges, the opportunities, the threats in a way are very different. So the one thing I've recognized from the very outset is that there is a critical mass of what you need in order for a sport to continue to be sustainable. We talked about the coaches, we talked about parents, we talked about young talented athletes, we talked about the support that you need politically, and I'm delighted that my meetings here with the Premier have been really positive. And you know, you need political support, you need it at national level, you need it at local level, and believe me, I've witnessed a lot of support for everything that we all believe in here. Why am I here specifically? First of all, it was a commitment I made to Lorna that within the period of my presidency I would get to Anguilla, and I'm delighted to be here. We also have the opportunity through one of the bidding processes for our World Championships to, and that was given to us by the state of Qatar, to build some tracks in countries and territories that haven't currently got facilities, or where tracks have been allowed to run down and to the state of dilapidation. So there is an ongoing process, and I was very keen. It's a process that's being carried out within World Athletics to narrow down the field of demand and to see what are the most compelling cases. And I don't think I'm reaching too many confidences when I say that the compelling case that has been made here is very real. It has the support. And in meeting the obligation I made to Lorna nearly 10 years ago that I would come to Anguilla, it's also been a good opportunity to see the commitment that there sits behind the infrastructural development, to even go to a site that I think it's no coincidence that they already started clearing for my arrival here. And we will, the process is ongoing, and it will help me. As, in a way, Helen made a very strong point that you can, you know, you can't really properly understand the local nature and complexity of challenge by simply reading a spreadsheet or an annual report, or even speaking, you know, in absentia to a federation. You need to have boots on the ground and to really understand that. So the last 24 hours and my discussions here and discussions with the governor and obviously with the Premier and your ministers and meeting the media and seeing some schools programs tomorrow has really given me an insight into what those challenges are. So that's why I'm here, if that makes sense. I'm not a property developer.
Thank you.
Oh no.
He's on, really? Yes. Okay, good afternoon again, sir. Okay, seeing that we have Anguillians have dual citizenship, and they can be an Anguillian and still be, a British overseas citizen and a UK citizen. So if you have a junior, we have some athletes in England right now. Can they represent England at a junior level and then come back to represent Anguilla, say at Carifta?
That's a really good question. I'm going to throw the tough one to Helen. I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but I can find that out very quickly for you.
Yeah, I'm not 100% assured of the answer on this, but essentially once you have had international representation at world level for UK, then to be able to go back to another nationality, you'd need to go through a process against our set of rules that are around transfer of allegiance. So there is a difference, though, in that you can compete for Anguilla at world level and represent Great Britain at Olympic level. There is more flexibility in that approach than the other way, but it's I wouldn't want to be quoted on that without actually properly referring to the rules.
We can find that out.
So that needs some research.
Well,
I think we have that. See, for the character game, we have some athletes overseas right now, they live in England, and if they qualify for Anguilla, they will very well wish they can come back to Anguilla at Carifta, which is regional. If they become good enough that they can say represent England at the European 23s, we hope that.
I don't know the answer to that, but Helen is right. We changed the approach. We had changed the approach to transfers of allegiance because I was getting sick and tired of athletes suddenly, in the space of a couple of weeks, going from being an athlete in one country to an athlete in another country, and sometimes there were welfare safeguarding issues because a lot of these athletes were being traded almost as minors. So we can properly look at giving you an answer to that.
I think it depends on the classification of where Carifta falls in, because international competition, once you've represented, it's you do need to go through the transfer of allegiance process. But we'll pick it up.
Yeah, well again, by March, we'll get that answer.
Zach, can you talk to the athletes? And I know I've seen some of these kids compete. Just about maybe pick out a race, maybe like the 80 World Championships, when you set the world record in the 800. What your mental preparation was to get you to that level, and your thought process, and how the race went for you. If you can remember that.
Many years ago. If you saw it, you were watching it on black and white television, don't worry. That's a good question, but let me, in a way, I don't really want to answer that question without going back to the beginning, because like you know, I started out at your age. I joined a local athletics club. I joined a local athletics club because I had an inspirational teacher in my school who had done cross country at a pretty decent level and encouraged me to join a local athletics club. So in a way, you can't answer the question about what is your mental preparation and what do you bring to the table in a major championship without looking at the process that you go through before that, because I joined an athletics club at the age of 11, but I didn't get to an Olympic arena until I was 21, 22. So by any stretch of the imagination, and this is what I was trying to say earlier, that nothing great in athletics happens overnight. You have to be very patient, and you don't just become physically better at what you're doing, you also begin to understand a great deal more about the mental demands of the sport. You understand a lot more about yourself, and you are going to know much more at the age of 15 than you do at the age of 12. You're going to know a lot more by the time you get to 18 than you are when you're 15. And you're going to know a lot. You go on growing. You go on growing physically and mentally in the sport. So by the time I got to an Olympic Games, I had had 10 years of competition. 10 years of competition at cross country, 10 years of competition indoors, 10 years of racing on the road, 10 years obviously of racing outdoors. And working, and the most important thing here is working effectively with only one coach throughout my whole career. Now it was my coach was my father. And he was smart enough, he was an engineer, so he was smart enough to know that he didn't want to master all the different disciplines. So we had physiologists, we had masseurs, we had nutritionists, we had a backroom team long before that actually became the popular thing to do. And most of those people were Americans, because at that time, that was where all the, physiology, which was some of you will go on to study physiology, I'm sure, as students, but then it was a rather dull academic subject. The Americans turned it into something that was applicable to performance. It was, how do you run faster? How do you get the boat to go quicker? How do you cycle faster? All those things were what was going on in the US. So by the time I got to an Olympic Games, I'd sort of learned a lot about myself. But actually my first Olympic final, I lost in I got a silver medal. It's hardly a disaster, but it wasn't what I was wanting, and it wasn't what I trained for 10 years for. And why did I lose? I lost because I didn't have enough experience in major championships. I competed on one-off occasions. Well, you will understand that as you develop your sport and you get to a championship where you may have to run a heat, a semi, a final, maybe you have to run a heat, a semi, a heat, a cross heat, a semi and a final. And that's very different from just being able to run on one occasion in one of the big cities or one of the big one-day track meets. So learning to deal with the championship environment, learning to live in an Olympic village, all the things that Sarnell is now understanding. And sometimes it comes relatively late in life. For Sarnell, it didn't happen early, but he was patient and he developed his sport and his approach to that. And so I lost the 800 meters, and then I had 3 days to get my head together. And the one thing I kept reminding myself was all the hard work that I'd done in those 10 years. The thousands of pounds, tons of steel that I'd lifted in the weights room, the thousands of miles I'd run on the road, the thousands of repetitions that I'd done on the track. You guys were telling me about your 200-meter session a few minutes ago. Well, when I was competing at the highest level, I would do 40 by 200 meters with a 30-second recovery. Now, you're not going to do that at the 8 hour. That's one way to get rid of somebody from asking. But that was, I was doing that when I was 22, 23. I didn't start by doing that. You've got a really good start. You're doing all the sorts of things that will be the building bricks. And I went on to win the 1500 meters. But I won it because I just kept reminding myself of all the hard work and all the things that I'd done. Not sacrifices, because if you enjoy your sport, it's not a sacrifice. It's something you want to do. You choose to do that possibly rather than other things. So that was really the answer to it. But you go on developing. And that was when I was 22. When I was 26, nearly 27, I went to the next Olympic Games in a very different headspace. I knew a lot more about myself. I knew a lot more about the distance. Still lost the 800. I mean, at least I was consistent. But then bounced back and won the 1500 meters as well. With that, by just knowing at that stage, being, if I say it, but just knowing more about the distance and knowing more about myself than any of the other competitors in the field back then. So that sort of covers it, I hope. And don't worry, you're not expected to go out and do 40 by 200.
Could you say something about drugs in sports. Our athletes need to know that when you're training at this young age, you have to train very hard and there's no shortcuts. It's what you put in, it's what you get out. And nowadays you would hear athletes testing positive for performance. So, and they know it's when I was in the UK, I did a protest. I did a tour over Scotland, the last GR week. And when I passed the finish line, the official, they had his notebook, and when he shot at Dope, he said, "Mr. Davis, you selected for the test." First time I did, and I went in the room, and he did a form, you read the form, and then you give it a die, open, you broke the seal, and you do the thing yourself, and then you get your results. So,
Yeah.
So in sports, it's clean, you got to be clean,
Yep.
and it's hard work.
And it's non-negotiable.
Right. Straight up.
Okay, so it's really simple. You don't. This does not have to be complicated at all. Drugs are do two things. First of all, they are cheating, and none of you want to cheat. There are no shortcuts. It's like going to watch a sports event by climbing over the fence and not paying for the ticket. It's cheating. Secondly, and any coach will tell you, it's unnecessary. Because if you're doing the right things in training and you've got the right coaching, then you're going to get there. And the most important element is work with coaches that believe in that. And I have no doubt at all that the coaches in this room fundamentally believe in that. So you don't need to do it. But there comes a warning here too, because remember, if you choose to take drugs, which is the shortcut and is cheating, there's a very high chance, I can tell you it's a very high chance because the technology we now have available to us will detect almost anything. So you will get caught, and long after your athletics career is over, that will stick with you for the rest of your life. It will probably prevent you from coaching. It will prevent you from taking any role or responsibility in a federation or in world athletics. And it will have a big, big impact on your career because that will stick with you through your life. So it's a very short-term game if you think you're going to get away with it. So it's simple. It's cheating. And it's unnecessary, and good coaches don't work with coaches that tempt you into doing something that you instinctively know is not the right approach. And find coaches that fundamentally believe in that. And parents, be vigilant about the coaches that you are comfortable about having your kids working alongside.
Afternoon again.
Hi.
My name is Gary Davis Morris. I'm a 800 meter runner as well.
So you're smart too.
Yes. 800 meter after 200. I'm very fascinated by how you were able to bounce back after you lost the 800 meter to go and win the 1500. I think that's very remarkable. You know, many of us, including myself, I feel like if I suffered a loss like that, to be able to lock in and go again takes a lot of mental strength. I wanted to ask you if you could give us any advice on things like maybe bad habits or maybe something you wish you knew earlier in your career that may have slowed you down, things that could have helped you get to where you wanted to get faster. Not necessarily a cheat code or a shortcut, just things that you could have done, maybe you feel you could have done better to get to the point you wanted to get to.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know that I have any easy answers to that. What are the things I would have done differently? Probably even on a daily basis. There are things that you do differently. You know, sometimes if you're doing 2 training sessions in the course of a day, you may modify the second training session in accordance with how you felt that morning or how you performed. And I think for me, the toughest decision in any sport, particularly for coaches, is less is more sometimes. You know, it's very easy when everything is going really well for a coach maybe to put that extra training session in, or for the athlete themselves to put that extra training session in. And the great thing that I had in my coaching team was their ability actually to protect me from myself on occasions. Because when you're 13 or 14 or 15, you really don't know enough about your sport, and you certainly don't know enough about maybe your own fragility and vulnerability. You want to remain uninjured, but you need good coaches to guide you in that direction. So I think the honest answer is that you probably do lots of different things in different ways and make what I call small course corrections all the time. And listen to yourself, listen to your body, be attentive to the environment that you're in, and particularly be attentive to you, understand you. Why did I? It's a good question, and I can give you an easier answer to that. In the 800 meters, I became too focused on other people in the field. I became too focused on. I had a very big rivalry with another British athlete at the time, and I think I allowed that, alongside my inexperience, to really reduce my performance that day. So for me, it was really simple. I stopped thinking about whoever else was in that field and only focused on what I knew I had the potential to do. So when I went into the 1500 meters, I wasn't remotely interested in anybody else in that field. I just knew that when I got to the final, I wanted to walk off the track and never feel as bad as I did when I walked off the track from the 800. Not because it was a silver medal, but because I'd fallen what I felt was so far below what I was capable of doing. And sometimes in athletics, you can get very, very focused on your competitors. Actually, the toughest person you're running against, or jumping against, or throwing against is often yourself. So focus much more on you and the journey, your own personal journey, and don't allow competitors or other, competitors in your event, or either outside of competition or inside of competition, to divert you from that focus. And that's effectively what I did for those 3 days. I stopped thinking about who else was in the race. I just thought, I can win this, but I can only win it if I run as well as I know I possibly can. And then I leant very heavily, as I said, on all the training that I put in, and thought, I haven't done this for 10 years to go home empty-handed. And so it sort of worked out. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, Lloyd, I believe shortly, so I think we will continue the questions after Lloyd leaves, but I think we wrap up. Can we move on?
Depends what time we've got supper booked. No, it's fine. We're not in a hurry to chase it.
Okay. Yes, I want to say a special thank you to Lloyd's Life for being here this afternoon with us to bring this session to the Anguillan public and to the world. We know that this has taken on a new excitement in Anguilla for the last couple of years, but now even more exciting because we have seen the interests of athletes, Angolan athletes not only here in Angola but around the world. And today, I must say, it's a special encouragement for our athletes here in this room and for those who could not make it. So we have the various meets starting this month, and we hope to have many of the athletes, the parents, coaches coming out to participate. And the support of the general public is encouraged, as well as the other stakeholders in athletics. So I just want to say thanks to Lloyd for giving us this extra boost here this afternoon. I know you have many engagements that you have to run away to now. So thank you, Lloyd, and we'll continue.